Hi, I'm Andrew Halsman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work with the good people at Family Tree Counseling Associates in Carmel, Indiana. My phone number is 317-457-8668, or you can reach me at ahalsman2@comcast.net. I'm entitling this video 6 Rules for Giving Constructive Criticism. I realize that in any long-term relationship, you'll be hurt from the behaviors or sometimes from the lack of behaviors of your partner. And criticism, while difficult to hear, is a necessary part. Criticism, constructive criticism, of course, is a necessary part of any relationship. It would be impossible to be in a relationship for any length of time without feelings coming up and behaviors being done that affect the other person. And if the person has a voice, which you would want them to have a voice, you'd want both of the partners in the relationship to have a voice, to talk about things that hurt them or bother them, and to talk about it in a way that doesn't destroy the relationship or wound the relationship in ways that are hard to come back from. So here are my 6 rules, and they're just very brief, and they're just, hopefully there will be a little bit of help in terms of how do you talk to your partner about things that bug you, that bother you. So number 1, I would think to focus on specific behaviors, focus on what is happening in right there and then in the relationship, rather than kind of a long-term you always or you never, you are just like this is who you are. So a specific behavior that, even though it seems like maybe those behaviors happen a lot of the time, it would be difficult and injurious to say, well, you never help with the kids, or you never, or you always are working late, rather than saying, or when you worked late yesterday, I really felt upset about that. So that's number 1. Just be more specific. So when you're talking in general terms, the other person is going to be defensive. They're going to shut down. Number 2, timing is everything. You've heard that expression before. So a relaxed situation, one in which you can talk to the person, your partner, and talk to them in a way that they can hear you, is much, much better, much more relaxed, much more comfortable, much more where the people are able to hear each other than a situation where you're in the middle of a fight. So I realize from most people that I talk to that it's very difficult to bring up a situation once it's been usually not resolved, but forgotten about. So 2 hours later, 3 hours later, the next day, even the next week, sometimes is an easier time to talk about something that was fought about rather than in the midst of the fight. But often people do not want to talk about something that they feel has passed. The problem, of course, is these issues are not specific to one situation. They're very generalized, and they have to do with some core issues, meaning some basic pieces of the relationship that aren't getting resolved. For instance, if your partner is always late and you feel not cared about because they're not valuing your time, and you're arguing about that in terms of being late, in terms of that specific situation, but you're arguing about it instead of being positive about it or focusing on your own feelings, then it's really hard for that person to hear. But if you're saying something a little later where you're saying, it hurts my feelings when you don't value my time, when I'm not valued, it might be a little easier. So timing in terms of maybe waiting, maybe where it's less hot, where it's less heated, is worthwhile. And number 3, frame the issue and your feelings about your partner in a positive light. If you talk positively, if you realize that this relationship is important to you, and you're saying, I'm basically giving this criticism, I'm talking to you, I'm dealing with this because I care about you and I care about the relationship. So most people are not out to really wound the other person, though it does seem like that a lot of the times. In my practice, I hear people talking to each other and trying to win points and get something in because they've been so wounded in the relationship. But really, the base of this is that the relationship matters and that you care about that other person and you want to talk about what you feel and what you think and what you see. And if you talk about it in a positive way, if you talk about it in a way where you're saying, well, I care about you and I care about this relationship, rather than trying to win points or just to vent, I think that would go over a lot better as well, or I know that would go over a lot better as well. Number 4, allow your partner to respond. I think this is pretty basic in some ways, but real difficult. If you're talking over that person, you're talking over your partner, you're not allowing them to get a word in after you're finished. You're, again, trying to make points. You're competing. And I think that's a big deal in relationships where people seem to be competing with each other. They seem to be trying to win. They seem to be trying to get over on the other person because they're so hurt and they're so frustrated and they're so disappointed in the way things have gone. And there's seemingly no hope and no positive way of looking at this. If you're thinking all of that and you're acting in that way, even without realizing it, because at the base you really care about the relationship, but you're not expressing it. So you're not being positive, and you're not, again, the fourth one is you're not allowing your partner to talk to you and then hear what they're saying. Hear maybe that they have some reason for what's going on, or some way that they can talk about what's going on with them, especially if you're talking about a specific behavior and you're not generalizing it to their personality. Okay, number 5, make I statements. I think this is the most basic and most important one of all, that if you're talking to your partner, you're saying, I feel this way, I care about this, I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel hurt, I feel worried, I feel scared for what's going on right now, as opposed to, you do this, or I think that she, or I think that he. That's a tricky way that people talk about their feelings sometimes. They say, I feel that she, or I feel that he does this. It's just another way of blaming. So if we're talking about I statements, we're talking about really connecting to what you feel, and this is in response to what the other person is doing. So the other person does something or doesn't do something, they're not emotionally available, they're working late, or they're not helping out with the kids, or they haven't taken out the garbage, whatever the situation is. This person, you have a feeling about what this person is doing or not doing. So to focus on the behavior, just that you do this and you don't do that all the time, is going to result in a lot of defensiveness. You want to focus on your feelings about that behavior, your feelings about that specific behavior, as opposed to the generalized, again, going back to number 1, the generalized, you never do this, or this is who you are. But what your feelings are is important. How you are impacted by what's being done. Because there's no black and white in this. It's not about right and wrong. Every couple is different. Every couple has slightly different, or maybe majorly different, rules about how they handle things. What are your rules? What are your boundaries? What are your feelings about something that's going on in the relationship? If you don't talk about it, no one's going to know. So having a voice and talking about your feelings and your thoughts matters. Number 6, don't play therapist. This is very easy to do. Don't use your knowledge of recovery, or your knowledge of just your knowledge of therapy, of doing this work as a club against your partner. Instead of owning your own feelings, you're talking about this other person, and you're talking about this other person, your partner that is, in ways that seem pseudo-therapeutic, or are pseudo-therapeutic, but are not therapeutic. Saying your spouse is just like his mother, or just like her father, or something like that might be right in many ways. But as a therapist, what I'm really trying to get across is not that you are married to, or that you are your father, or that you're married to your mother, or vice versa, but that these issues transcend generations. It's not exactly that you're with someone who's exactly like that other person, and that can be used as a dangerous club against your partner. What we're really talking about is these issues that are unresolved in you, these issues that are unresolved in your spouse come up over and over again. And if you're talking about your spouse, you're talking about someone else, you're not dealing with your own issues. So being a pseudotherapist, being a make-believe person who has all this knowledge, even if you have knowledge, even if you have these feelings and you have these observations, what we're really talking about is how to have constructive criticism in ways that are heard. If you're not being heard, if you're saying the most intelligent thing in the world and it isn't being taken in, it isn't being validated, it isn't being heard, then it's pretty useless. So these rules are just really about being heard, finding ways to get across to that person in specific instances, in focused ways about who you are and what you feel that matters in the relationship. And so if you can follow some of these dictates, if you can follow some of those, focus on specific behaviors, have good timing, frame the issue about, in a positive way, allow your partner to respond, make I statements, and don't be a pseudotherapist, then you have a good chance of having a good conversation, a good dialogue about the relationship. Thank you for listening. My name is Andrew Holzman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and my number is 317-457-8668 or aholzman2@comcast.net. I appreciate you listening. Thanks again.